Good afternoon, everybody. It's Thursday, April 4th. John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report, coming to you live from Washington, D.C. Hello, YouTubers. I can see you all. Welcome, everybody. Let me get TikTok rolling here. Hey, guys. Boom. TikTok, TikTok, TikTok. Beautiful day here in D.C. I'm very happy. Sort of lovely. It's spring. It's clearly spring. I mean, it's been spring all winter, but it's definitely spring now. My warm weather plants are outside. I've sort of given up on worrying about the frost at this point. Oops, where are my glasses? Ah, there are my glasses. All right. Oops, almost put my reading glasses down. Oops, there we go. Need them to get TikTok set up. Hang on a sec very quickly here. We do like that one, though. Sorry, doing a quick look at TikTok here. The hat. These are not new. TikTok keeps saying there's new stuff. There is not new stuff on TikTok. They need to get with it and do more new stuff on TikTok. Anyway, guys, we can do an Aflac. We haven't done the Aflac in a while. There we go. Aflac. Boom. Hello, all. Exactly. Oh, all right. Go live. There we go. All right, folks. TikTok. There we go. Mirror. All right. TikTok is rolling. Woo-woo. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome, YouTubers. And TikTokers slowly. How are folks? Thursday. Wow. So busy getting ready for my trip. Packing. Well, I'm packed, but, you know, I keep double checking since I have to see how much it weighs this weekend, which will be the fun thing. Hey, Pat. Hey, John. Hey, TikTokers. How are we doing today? Oh, boy. So, yeah. Hey, Big Hawk. Ooh, man. I was just saying, I've had a busy last few days getting ready for this trip, so hopefully I'm pretty much there. What was that? Thank you, John, for the hearts. Appreciate that. My sister is going to watch Sasha while I'm gone, so I'm going to go to Chicago with her, and then when I leave for 2 weeks, she will be staying. Thanks, Mustard. I know you're good for it. So I just was letting you know because not everybody knows when they actually win. I've learned I've got to tell people they won because most people don't know. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Hannah. Oh, boy. Anyway, give a quick hello where you guys are from if you would. I would appreciate that. I think it's just nice to kind of have people check in and say where they are. And it's always interesting because we have such an interesting international crowd. Thank you, Lilith. That I think it's kind of fun just to see where people are. Thank you, Sexseed. And you know, we get different people every day anyway, so it's kind of fun to see sort of some of the different people. While I'm away, thank you, Aviation. I don't think I can do the show while I'm gone because, you know, it takes me several hours of preparation for the show. I'm going through the news all day and then putting together like 6 pages of notes. I can't do it while I'm on vacation. My nephew's getting married in Bali. So I'm going to go to Singapore for a few days because she's from Singapore, his wife. So we're going to, see Singapore and then go to Bali for like a week and a half of wedding festivities. So I will not be able to do the show, I think. I will be definitely checking in. I'll be doing videos on TikTok and YouTube. I'll even do some lives, some basically vacation blogging because what the heck? Introduce you guys to Singapore and Bali, and which I haven't really done before, a vacation blogging with TikTok or YouTube. So I think it'd be kind of fun to try that out. You know what I mean? I mean, the live stuff is easy enough, but to try to do sort of videos of different interesting things I see. So I will be doing that at least because I think that would be fun. But the show's going to be too hard. You're from Trinidad. Oh, that's cool, Carl. Nice to see you. But we'll see. Yeah, I mean, I'll be sort of checking in and going live occasionally just for fun from the beach, from the pool, you know. Just to sort of check in and say hi to folks so you don't forget me while I'm gone for 2 weeks. Anyway, guys, all right. Yeah, Susan, you can come. Exactly. Well, he's like, yeah. Let me get rolling, guys. Welcome. Thank you, Chazak. Thank you, Larissa. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. It's my nightly show I do Monday to Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern Time, U.S., where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. Sometimes I get into other American news, too, when there's big news to talk about. There isn't too much today. I mean, Biden and Netanyahu are getting, Biden's getting a little pissed at Netanyahu, but nothing's happening with that yet. I mean, they had a phone call today that didn't go well, apparently, and Biden kind of said, stop killing civilians or or U.S. aid will be contingent on it, but it's not contingent yet. So I'm not convinced anything's changed. Thank you, Jorge. Thank you, Pedro. But we shall see. But let's dive into the Ukraine stuff. Today is day 769 of Vladimir Putin's special 3-day military operation in Ukraine. Thank you, Alan, for the gift on TikTok. TikTokers are being very generous tonight. I appreciate that. Remember, the other way you guys can help out is by becoming members as well. You can do the gifts, of course, on TikTok, gifts on YouTube. On YouTube, they're called Super Chats and Super Stickers. And actually, one way with Super Chats is if you ask a Super Chat question on YouTube, I will always answer that as the next thing I talk about. In general, I try to get to as many questions as I can, but as you guys know, it's kind of hard, when the show's going on. Thank you, Russell. Thank you, Marcy. But so please do consider those. Please do consider becoming a subscriber. That helps me a lot, because subscribers basically are supporting my work with a monthly donation. Could be $5 a month, $7, $8 a month, whatever. But it helps me a lot because, frankly, it helps me pay the bills because I do this full time. So if you can help with that, you can also give gift subscriptions, by the way, on TikTok and YouTube. You can give gifts that other people can get for free, which is very nice. So do that. Final point, thank you, Aflac. Thank you, Kim, for the duck. Final point, remember to like my show, so to speak. Thank you, Mark. Hit the up button on YouTube. Tap the screen on TikTok for those likes. When you like the show, when you comment, any of that kind of stuff tells the computer, tells the algorithm that you like it, and potentially it makes them tell more people. So that's always a good thing. Thank you, Martin. Oh, who's got the duck now? Who's got the Aflac? Oh, that's Allie. Thank you, Allie. Thank you, Mario, as well. So please do, if you would. I appreciate it. All right, guys, let's get rolling. Saturday, coffee talk. Coffee talk. So we've got our coffee talk on Saturday. Thank you, Leah. I appreciate that. Saturday morning is our coffee talk, our weekly get-together we do for the paid subscribers. Anybody who is a paid monthly subscriber, thank you, Life. Join me on TikTok if you're a TikTok paid subscriber. Thank you, Gamma. Thank you, Joe. Join me on YouTube if you're a YouTube paid subscriber. The rest of you can also join us on Discord. I'll be streaming there as well. Thank you, D-Lyle. I know with the light from outside today and the lighting in here works well. And I've got my special red shirt on. He was saying the lighting was good today. I think red just pops, for this stuff. It was funny. My mom had told me years ago. Thank you, Gamma. Thank you, Light. Who was it? More Running and Christopher and Lee. My mom's an artist and she took a painting class of something, and she said the teacher sort of, they were painting a landscape or whatever, and the teacher took like a red handkerchief and just threw it in the middle of the scene and basically said, I use it for all my paintings because that little touch of red just brings it alive. And I've always felt that way with clothing, like the red on the show just kind of makes it warmer, I've got dark ones of this too, but the red, actually this is one of the red ones I had to dye myself because I couldn't find a nice red shirt. So I bought white ones and I dyed it red. So I'm very proud of myself with this. Thank you, Bryce. In any case, so Saturday's our coffee talk. So do show up for that. Thank you, Robert, for the paid subscribers. I know red does kind of work for me. So I will keep doing it. Thank you, Maddie and Robert, for gifts as well. I know the Star Trek, it is not a Star Trek red shirt. That is true. So today is the 75th anniversary of the forming of NATO. As you know, or maybe you don't, but I will tell you, NATO was formed after World War II when the Russians, who basically the Soviet Union, but the Soviet Union was run by the Russians, took half of Europe hostage and turned it into communist dictatorships. This was Russia's thank you to the West for helping them defeat the Germans. You may recall that when World War II started, the Russians were allies of the Germans. They actually signed a secret pact with the Germans in order to give them permission to start the war and the ability to start the war, because they said, don't worry, we, Russia, will not attack you. Go ahead and start World War II. So the Germans did. Well, 2 years into the war, what did the Germans do? The Germans turned around and attacked Russia. Oops. Big surprise there. The Germans can't be trusted. Certainly not the World War II Germans. Thank you, Ava. Thank you, Running. So then we became allies of the Russians. My enemy's enemy is my friend. We helped the Russians defeat the Germans in World War II. And how did the Russians thank us? They took half of Europe hostage for almost 50 years. Thank you, Jen. They turned Eastern Europe into a series of brutal communist dictatorships. They took a big chunk of Germany, East Germany, turned it into an independent country called the DDR. I guess what would be Actually, that's our GDR. In English, we call it GDR. We always call it DDR, which is the German one, the German Democratic Republic. They took over Czechoslovakia, communist dictatorship, Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, Poland, all communist dictatorships. Horrific what they did. Well, as a result, NATO was formed. The US and Europe were very worried about whether the rest of Europe was going to be taken over by Russian communist dictatorships and by the Russians. The Russians also invaded these countries, brutally put down democratic uprisings in Hungary and Czechoslovakia, and NATO was formed as a result in the late 1940s. NATO also had a couple other added benefits. Thank you, Eva Aflac. As you may know, if you're a student of history, Europe had a lot of wars. Just in the 20th century, right? There was World War I and World War II. Thank you, Kevin. And World War I and World War II, among others, was the French versus the Germans. So part of the idea of NATO was bringing the Europeans together, especially the French and the Germans, into a joint military coalition, right? NATO's idea was all the countries get together and they promise to defend each other. Now, if you promise to defend each other, it not only means hopefully nobody else is going to attack you, right? Because if they attack you, they've attacked everybody. So everyone agrees that if anyone gets attacked, everyone else will go help them, right? So part of it is that. But part of it is if you know you're defended, if you're France and you know if Germany attacks you again, everyone else will defend you, you're not going to be as worried about Germany. You're not going to be worried about building up your weapons. You're not going to be as freaked out about the Germans, which helps, and the Germans, the same thing with the French, tamp down concerns, but it ends up making relations smoother. And basically, we were able to, all of us in NATO, able to get a lot of the European countries working together as partners for the first time in history, or in very, recent history, certainly. So anyway, NATO has been a great success. The longest military alliance, I believe, in the history of the world, from what I'd read. Also a peaceful alliance, unlike the Russians and the Warsaw Pact. And the Russians today, NATO really, other than having to go into Yugoslavia to stop a genocide, NATO has been entirely peaceful. And the Russians, it's funny because I'll read you a little bit later of the Russians complaining about NATO. Thank you, Ellie, and thank you, Dee, and thank you, Jen. I miss a few of the gifts here. Kevin. The Russians are, of course, freaking out about it, but whatever. Speaking of Russia, Russia did a horrible double tap attack today in Kharkiv, Ukraine. Kharkiv, as you guys know, is northeastern Ukraine. It is Kharkiv is right up here on the border of Russia. The Russians did an attack that they are very well known for. The Russians attacked a building and then waited until, hang on a second. I'm going to give an angel their wings here. There we go. The Russians attacked a building. They waited, 10, 15 minutes. They do this a lot, by the way. The Russians have done this repeatedly in Ukraine. I'm going to give you a statistic in a minute. They wait a few minutes until civilians rush the building to get the wounded, until the ambulances arrive. The firefighters arrive in order to get the wounded, right? And then as soon as the ambulances are there, as soon as the fire trucks are there, as soon as the civilians have run to help the wounded, the Russians bomb it again. And the whole point of a double tap, it literally means tap, right? Tap, tap. It's a double tap. You attack twice, but you make sure the attack is spread out in time. Again, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it could even be 5 minutes. And in order to kill as many civilians as possible, in order to kill as many firemen, firefighters, ambulance workers. It's brutal. It's awful. It is also a tactic that was very popular with Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda did this, for example, with a number of the embassy attacks in Africa that were very famous in the 1990s. I think it might have been our embassy in Kenya, I want to say, where they attacked and then they waited like 10 minutes until all of these civilians came running to help everyone, and then they blew up the civilians. So really horrific. The Ukrainian State Emergency Service says that Russia's double tap attacks against Ukraine have killed 91 first responders and injured 348 since the start of the war. CNN did an interesting interview today with, or not an interview, I guess they must have talked to this guy, with a NATO official who was weighing in on a lot of different things, which was interesting. Hey, mods, I think we may have a, I don't know, I think we may have a troll over on TikTok. Yep, we have a troll on TikTok. Yeah, Jillian's right. He's a troll. The Scottish one's a troll. Yeah. Take him out. Take him out. That was a little devilish of this right there. I was like, ooh. It was like, take him out. It was like red rum. Anyway, thank you. Oh, that's okay, Amanda. No. I liked it. We just sort of, no, don't worry. You're okay. Don't worry. You're allowed to be doing other things. CNN. So CNN was talking to a NATO official, among others. Very interesting. And one of the things they were talking about was Ukraine's shortages of ammunition and equipment. Let me just read this to you, okay? Ukraine's shortage of ammunition and military equipment resulting from the U.S. and its allies' struggle to resupply the country's military is having an increasingly dire effect on the battlefield, U.S. and NATO officials are warning, as Russia intensifies its attack on Kyiv's dwindling air defenses, knowing that they likely won't be replenished anytime soon. The Ukrainian military is experiencing shortages in air defense munitions, mostly in the medium to long range, a NATO official said on Wednesday. It's not just that we know that, it's that Russia knows that. So Russia is using drones and missiles in ways that are really explicitly designed to deplete Ukrainian air defense systems. Ukraine's been rationing its air defenses for about a month now. The problem is that there are things, this is according to a senior American defense official, there are things in the pipeline being procured, being produced, but not in a timeline over the next few months that would be sufficient for the gaps because we don't have the funding. Bottom line is, because the U.S. funding has been cut off completely to Ukraine by Donald Trump and then by the MAGA Republicans in Congress, because Donald Trump told them to. They've admitted this, by the way. They're very proud of it. Because the MAGA Republicans cut off all U.S. aid to Ukraine, the Ukrainians are now running out of air defenses. And as I just talked about the double taps, every night the Russians are attacking Ukraine by air with drones and with missiles. Another point, this was a very long CNN piece, by the way, but it had a number of interesting parts. There was talk about a Russian breakthrough. There's been discussions as to, is it possible that Russia would do a big, counteroffensive this summer? And this NATO official was saying they don't really believe Russia's going to do a big counteroffensive, but the concern is that Russia still might do an attack that breaks through Ukraine's defenses and has a big impact, which is bad, obviously. Listen to this. As of now, Russia appears to lack the necessary maneuver units to mount a large, successful attack. U.S. officials are growing increasingly concerned, however, that Ukraine's frontline positions may not be resilient enough to fend off Russia's ongoing advances, especially given Ukraine's acute shortage of artillery and ammunition. Again, America, thanks a lot. One significant breakthrough in the front line could open the floodgates to a Russian onslaught, one U.S. official warned. Final point the NATO official was talking about was Ukraine's rather effective attacks on Russian oil refineries. As you know, Russia for the last 3 years, thank you, Janice, appreciate that. Keep the gifts coming, guys. I appreciate it. And like I said, I need them to pay the bills. I mean, I do this full time, so I literally am able to do this because of your guys' support. So please do keep the gifts coming. I appreciate it. Russia has been attacking Ukraine's energy, all 3 winters that we've had the war going on. Thank you, Ellie. Those are ridiculous. Thank you. Thank you, Marie. And thank you, PC, for the rose. Appreciate it, guys. And Lara, thank you as well. I see the gift up there. Thank you, Crystals. So the Russians have been attacking Ukrainian energy, thank you, Aviation, thank you, Crystals, for the last several winters in order to basically freeze the Ukrainians to death over the winter. They've been going after civilians. They haven't been going after the military. They've been going after the civilians and trying to freeze them, trying to get the Ukrainians to capitulate by going after civilians. By the way, Sammy Boy is a troll, just so folks know. He's going to be leaving us. Yes, Sammy Boy, you should trust CNN because CNN is one of the best news sources in the world, actually. Thank you, Jen. I always forget about that rose. I love that rose. Thank you, Jen. But yes, CNN, you absolutely, number of news sources you can trust. The Guardian has great stuff on Ukraine. CNN has amazing stuff. New York Times, Wall Street Journal. I mean, from my American perspective, BBC's very good. Sky News is excellent. Thank you, Agnieszka. Lot of really good, lot of good stuff, actually. But anyway, mods, anybody who does the CNN stuff, feel free to mute them, because that's one of my tests I do for trolls. I like to talk about CNN because, and honestly, somebody who says Fox is the best, I couldn't care less. But you can tell by the attitude. Actually, that person I wouldn't have taken off necessarily. By the way, mods, that one I would have let that person say something else first. Big Hawk, I would unmute that guy. The Teddy Roosevelt guy gets blocked for life, clearly. Interesting though. See, we're getting a lot of the the Russians must just be coming in now. What did we talk about that was getting the Russians upset? The double taps. That must have been it. That must have been it. That must have been it. Yeah, that had to be it. All right, here we go. So Ukraine's energy. NATO officials say that attacks on refineries are having a significant impact in Russia. Ukraine has disrupted as much as 15% of Russia's refinery capacity, which is great. As a result of the strikes, Russia has had to significantly increase its gasoline imports from Belarus, its neighboring dictatorship and ally. And has even imposed a 6-month ban on exports in order to stabilize domestic prices. That's great news. They're beep. Yeah, that's good. No, Ukraine's been very strategic in doing this in terms of going after Russia's oil refinery production. In other words, they're not just going after energy sort of willy-nilly. They're specifically going after the refineries. And again, smart of them, and they've already hit 15%, which is significant. You know, if they can double that, then things get very interesting. Putin. So Putin today, oh God, I always tell these stories about Putin in Russia to educate you as to what we're dealing with. As somebody who is, I studied Russia in graduate school. I studied them as the Soviet Union in graduate school. But just to give you a sense of who we're dealing with, Putin today said in a speech that terrorist attack in Moscow a week and a half ago, or 2 weeks ago now actually, couldn't have been ISIS. He's still claiming it's not ISIS. They're still claiming it's the French. Now they're claiming the French too, by the way. I have to laugh about this. They're claiming it's Ukraine. They claimed it was America. They claimed it was the Brits. Okay. Now they're claiming it's the French too. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Literally, everybody. It's everybody. I'm going to say it was Ben and Jerry's next too. Everybody except ISIS, who Western intelligence determined it is, who has claimed credit multiple times, has provided proof that it was them. So now Putin said today, once again, he tried to argue again. Now, mind you, this is gaslighting. There was a report a couple days ago, I was telling you guys, that several Russian officials came forward and admitted that Putin knows very well who did it. They were at meetings with him where everyone agreed it was ISIS. It wasn't the Ukrainians. Putin's policy is gaslighting. Putin is a former KGB official. As I've told you before, everything Putin says goes through the lens of being KGB and thinking psychologically about what he wants you to believe. So everything is a psychological ploy. Everything's a psychological trick. It's a psychological game, okay, with stuff he says. So Putin says today that it wasn't ISIS, and ISIS would never attack Russia because Russia is too harmonious of a society and Moscow's foreign policy is just too peaceful. So there's no reason Islamic terrorists would ever get upset at Russia. The quotes from Putin here. Russia can't be the target of terrorist attacks by Islamic fundamentalists. Our country offers a unique example of interfaith harmony and unity, interreligious unity and interethnic unity. And on the international stage, this one's my favorite, on the international stage, Russia behaves in such a way that it is unlikely to be a target for attack by Islamic fundamentalists. Okay, so we could talk about Afghanistan. That was a while ago, but the Russians did invade Afghanistan. They brutalized the country for 10 years. Muslim country. Muslims not terribly happy about being invaded and occupied by the Russians. Second of all, you've got, the other big one, for starters, is going to be Syria. Putin has been the guy propping up the Syrian regime, the dictator Assad, who has committed, well, I don't know whether we officially call it genocide. Yeah, Chechnya too, officially call it genocide, but certainly horrific crimes against humanity, chemical weapons against civilians, I mean, horrific. I think it was, I don't remember if it was 2006, probably 2000, when was it? When were the attacks in Syria, the chemical weapons attacks? Were they 2014, give or take? It was under Obama, so I know it was, I was going to say 16, but it was under Obama, which makes me think it was earlier, right? But the Russians were a party to that. The Russians were a party to Assad crossing the line. 2013, 2004, it was around then, yeah. I would imagine, for example, Arabs and Muslims probably weren't very happy about taking out thousands of civilians with chemical weapons and Russia having a hand in it, right, by propping up the Syrian regime. So thank you, Valka. Appreciate the gift. But, again, I raise this because, again, it's to show you Putin's thinking and just the lies, the gaslighting, right? Just all of this, all of the lies and the gaslighting that come from him. But to say that, it wasn't ISIS. ISIS, I mean, literally, ISIS is like, it's us. It's us. It's ISIS, guys. The Russian, then the Russian Defense Ministry blamed the French yesterday. So the Russian Defense Minister holds a phone call with his French counterpart for the first time, I think, since the war started. So this was a big deal. And it's good, these kind of contacts are useful, right? I mean, it's good to have contacts with the Russians, even if we're not their friends right now. The Russian Defense Ministry quoted the Russian defense minister telling his French counterpart that the Kiev regime does nothing without the approval of its Western handlers, and that Russia hoped the French security services weren't involved in the terror attack in Moscow. I mean, again, now the French were involved, okay? Early on, Putin claimed it was Ukraine. Then they claimed it was America and Britain, even though America and Britain, thank you, Allison, had warned Putin about the attacks, right? Had warned them about the attacks, okay? That was the first thing. And we even told them one of the buildings that was at risk, which was this Crocus City Hall that was the place attacked. Putin did nothing about it. He did publicly excoriate us 3 days before the attack and claim we were lying, that there was no imminent attack. And then, of course, the attack happened exactly where, right? Where we said it would happen. But now they're throwing in the French too. I mean, it's like unbelievable. I did see, by the way, since we're talking about NATO and stuff, I did see one little lie pop up. He is a Kremlin bot, actually. Ashley, I appreciate you not being harsh with that person, but that person is a Russian troll. Yeah, you can knock him out. What the bot was saying was, NATO encroached on Russia's borders. NATO didn't encroach on Russia's borders. NATO hasn't expanded in 20 years not in 20 years, but there hasn't been a NATO expansion near Russia in easily 20 plus years. No one's expanded near the Russian border. No one. Now, in the last year we did, thank you, Courtney, because Russia invaded Ukraine, right? But I mean, right? Russia invaded Ukraine and forced Sweden and Finland to go, oh my God, we don't feel safe. NATO, please protect us. But 20 years before, thanks, Ash. No, you were nice being generous about it. I appreciate it. I would rather have you be generous than not. But I could tell by the question the person was asking they were a troll. Everyone else noticed it too, But I mean, the Russians, it's kind of amazing because they do, and their supporters in the West, the Russian supporters in the West like to put out the lie that NATO was expanding and that's why Russia had to invade Ukraine. NATO didn't expand. We pulled this up yesterday. NATO hasn't expanded near Russia in 20 years until the war happened, right? There was no NATO expansion. Also, even if NATO had expanded and somehow this was the lie of why Russia had to invade, is that why Russia had to commit, genocide and war crimes in Ukraine? I mean, the Russians have literally been charged with war crimes by the International Criminal Court. The International Criminal Court at The Hague issued an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin for war crimes. Did NATO force Russia to do that? Did NATO force Russia to kidnap thousands of Ukrainian children, which is actually what the International Criminal Court's warrant is about, right? I mean, did NATO do that? I don't think so, right? I mean, and again, this all goes to the larger picture of, is Russia innocent or not, right? Were they just victims that had no choice? If you're a victim who's a nice guy, like Russia said about ISIS, though Russia's really nice internationally, and you had no choice but to invade because NATO was expanding, then why did you invade and then try to commit genocide, have a plan to wipe out millions of the top Ukrainian officials, cultural activists, politicians, right? Why did you literally kidnap thousands of Ukrainian children and take them to Russia in order to brainwash them and make them Russians? Again, this is the International Criminal Court saying this. This is the arrest warrant. I mean, why did you double tap that building in Kharkiv last night, intentionally trying to kill the medical workers who were there, right? I mean, nice countries don't do that, right? You don't do that when you invaded simply because you felt threatened, right? It's ridiculous. I mean, obviously it's ridiculous. Good people, put it this way, good people don't do bad things over and over and over and over again. And the same thing goes for good countries. Where was this? I'm going to skip that. Finland closed its border permanently with Russia, at least for a while. So the Finns had closed their border with Russia, I think it was last fall. Was it? Last November, yeah. Because the Russians basically were ticked at the Finns for joining NATO. And remember, Finland was able to join NATO last year. Sweden just joined about a month ago because the Turks and the Hungarians were being a pain. And Finland, the Russians are angry at the Finns for joining NATO. So in order to basically get back at the Finns, they're trying to find ways of messing with them that fall short of war, because of course Russia's not going to go to war with Finland because Finland is protected by NATO now, right? So the Russians decided they were going to throw a bunch of immigrants from Middle Eastern countries and Africa at the Finnish border and just like shove them into Finland. There were, where was this? Just to show you really quick. In November alone, around 900 asylum seekers from countries like Kenya, Morocco, Pakistan, Somalia, and Yemen entered Finland via Russia. So the Russians would let them into Russia, or they were in Russia and they'd arrest them and then just literally push them to the Finnish border. So the Finns finally said no, right? No, you know? Any case, so the Finns finally, they were going to reevaluate this April 14th, in about a week or so, and they just said, you know what, we're keeping our border shut with Russia, which is interesting because my suspicion is that this probably helped. This helps the Finns more than the Russians. The Russians are the ones who probably want to come to Finland a lot more than the Finns want to go to Russia, would be my guess. Yeah, Spicy, there was no CIA coup. Don't be silly. So another thing that the Russian, Russia's supporters get very upset about, and it makes sense actually because Russia is a dictatorship. It's a brutal dictatorship. Thank you, Marcy. And it's gotten, much more brutal now with the crackdown on dissent, opposition leaders being shot and killed generally, dissidents and people who flee the country being poisoned, right? With Novichok nerve gas, or nerve agent, with poison when they go to Britain and everywhere else. Journalists literally killed. People thrown off of balconies, right? We know the history in Russia. I was trying to remember what somebody mentioned something that got me thinking of that with Russia's sort of history of being a dictator. Hang on a second. What was it? Hold on. Oh, yeah. So one of the things that gets Russia's defenders very upset and the Russians upset are countries that are democracies and countries that seek democracy and seek freedom, especially when you're a fellow Slavic country on Russia's border. One of Russia's biggest problems with Ukraine is Russia literally thinks that Ukraine is part of Russia. The Russians said at the beginning of the war, and the Russian Orthodox Church just said last weekend, that the Russian goal should be to take all of Ukraine and make it Russia, because they think it is Russia, that Ukraine's a fake state. It hasn't existed long. They say this kind of crazy stuff, right? Well, I keep forgetting as I go like on these tangents what I was going with this. Come on. I got this. With Russia and the state. It was one of the trolls actually, but I like when the trolls give me ideas on what to talk about. Come on. Oh, the coup. Yeah. So they get very upset that the Ukrainians in 2014 had a revolution to overthrow a corrupt pro-Moscow government that was, taking away their freedoms, but also taking away their efforts to become part of the European Union. And the people rose up. It was a democratic movement, and they overthrew their government. It was a peaceful, not overthrew, literally they forced the government to step down. Well, imagine, and think about that. And it makes sense. Thank you, Timothy. It makes sense that the Russian trolls are coming and getting very upset about this in 2014, because some of them are on TikTok right now. Thank you, Patty. Because think about this. Millions of people going to the street to demand a corrupt government step down, right? I mean, millions of Slavic people going to the streets, many of whom speak Russian, going and demanding a corrupt government step down, and successfully having the government step down, having democratic elections, and getting a president elected by the people elected, okay? If you're Russia, you don't want that happen. If you're Putin, which it is next door, you don't want that happening. You can't afford to have millions of people in the street. Or the lesson be that next door in Ukraine, a country that the Russians, many of them say, is Russia, right? You can't afford to have millions of people go to the street and send the lesson that Slavs, your neighbors, your brothers, they're able to go to the street to overthrow a corrupt government. They're able to go to the street to force honest elections, right? I mean, in Russia? I mean, so that's what, and I would say Gunnerman says that's what this war is really about. That is what this war is about. I mean, it's in part the Soviet Union. It's in part Putin is very upset, and a lot of Russians are, that when the Soviet Union fell, Russia lost a lot of its occupied territories. Russia was occupying 14 other countries, basically, because Russia really was running the Soviet Union. They lost Ukraine, they lost the Baltic, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. They lost all of these other countries that they were colonizing, and the countries broke free. Russia wants them back. That's why the biggest threat people worry about is to Ukraine and the Baltic states. Again, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, because the Russians want them back. In any case, what else have I got here? Got the oil refineries, which we talked about. Oh, I didn't mention this. I'll mention this really quick. Keep the gifts coming, guys. Please do. There was an article today by Reuters that international sanctions are actually making it much harder for Russia to repair the oil refineries that Ukraine's been hitting with their drones, but also refineries just need repairs, right? I mean, they're factories. They need repairs. Well, what the Russians have found is the parts, the equipment they need to repair, and the expertise they need to repair all comes from the West. So they're having an increasingly difficult time repairing their oil refineries. For example, let me read this to you. This one refinery, which is one of their biggest, Russian oil firm Lukoil's refinery at Norsi, Norsi. The engineers rushed around to find spare parts, and they couldn't find anything. Then the whole unit just stopped working. 4 other sources said the unit, a catalytic cracker used to convert heavier hydrocarbons into gasoline, has been out of production since January, and it was not clear when it could be repaired due to a lack of expertise inside Russia. As a result, the Norsi refinery, the 4th biggest in Russia, has cut gasoline production by 40%. Lukoil did not respond to requests for comments. I'll bet they didn't. It's a wider problem beyond this refinery. Reuters was saying it's happening in refineries across Russia, and it's been exacerbated by the drone attack. So that I thought was very interesting, that the sanctions, thank you, Patty, thank you, Crystals, that the sanctions actually were having and now this is, by the way, an interesting point. I have often wondered, we worry about Ukraine and whether Ukraine can survive for the long term, right? And there's legitimate concerns about that, especially with, U.S. aid being cut off 100%. So adjusting my lighting here a little bit. But the other concern, and I've mentioned this at the beginning of the show. Thank you, Timothy, for the helmet. I've mentioned this, beginning of my show, meaning years ago, that people don't talk enough about whether Russia has the staying power. I really wonder. I know we say Russia's got enough weapons for a couple of years, right? They're getting more men. But I do wonder to what degree the sanctions aren't taking a bite, and what kind of bite they take on the Russian economy and the Russian war effort. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to stop the war in 2 years, but, I think we sort of forget, or I'll look at it this way. I think we assume that Russia isn't paying a price, right, for sort of the sanctions, and the sanctions hitting them incrementally. And at least from what we're hearing anecdotally, like this oil refinery, it is. I'm sure they're looking at YouTube videos on how to fix them. Are you kidding? Absolutely. Listen to this too. Russia's Novatek is being forced to scale back its huge Arctic liquefied natural gas project after Western sanctions curbed its access to ice-class tankers and will focus instead on developing its project at the ice report of Murmansk. But basically, it has set back Russia's liquefied natural gas projects as well. The sanctions have, which, they're going to try to do it elsewhere. But again, it's hurting their energy production and their energy sales, which is good. Finally, the final story, and I'm not convinced there's a way I can say this well. I'm going to say this very generally because our overlords, you guys are fine, these people, elsewise, our overlords, God knows what kind of stories they don't like. But there's a story sort of out of Russia now that the Russians basically took an American, and they're very proud of this because they've got an American fighting for them in Ukraine. Oh my God. The American, the Russians gladly hired to join their military. Again, these are not stories meant to berate Russia. They're meant to tell you about Russia, okay? So a former Massachusetts, a state in the U.S., Northeast, a former Massachusetts city councilor, so a city official, was charged with possession of, I'm not sure I'm allowed to say the word, magazines depicting children, okay? We'll say that. He fled the country. He flew to Istanbul, Turkey. Thank you, Dawn. And in February, he was reportedly in Avdiivka in Ukraine fighting with the Russian army. And his social media page show all of this as well. The Russians gladly took this guy. I mean, considering how bad he is, the Russians were like, sure, you can fight for us. They think it's good PR. It's like, okay. Anyway, that is it for the news. Let's do our Q&A and everything. I don't have auction items. Our auctions just ended. I don't have new auction items up, but I've got new auction items I'm going to put up before I travel. From Massachusetts, yes. You can Google the story. Yes, only the best and brightest. Anyway, so yeah, let's do Q&A and everything else. Knauf? What's Knauf? Thank you, Chazak. You rock. I appreciate the couch potato. Thank you. The bomb in the Cold War. Interesting. Okay, Martin. I'll try to remember to check it out. Yeah, Massachusetts is not fun to spell, but that does look correct, Gunther. Yep. Misha was here a couple days ago. I think he was here 2 days ago. Sorry, one of our Russians who joins us on YouTube very often. No, that's true. Frank Thomas raises a good point about sanctions. The Soviet Union survived for 70 years despite being an economics basket case. I think this gives you an idea how long Russia can survive against sanctions, unfortunately. That's a fair point. Now, the sanctions still helped. I mean, the Soviet Union kind of came to a grinding halt, finally. Took them 70 years to do it. 74 years, right? But yeah, why Finland joined NATO. All right, I'll try to remember to check all this stuff out later. Callum may be busy. I try not to bother Callum all the time, but actually it's Thursday night. I thought it was Friday night. It's Thursday night. So you never know. Anyway, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that there is one yet. Somebody was asking about the Israel-Iran situation. I just saw a story on that today of some kind of a threat or concerns about Iran attacking Israel. I think it would be really stupid of Iran to do that because, by the way, thank you, Cheryl, there isn't a better way to shore up American support for Israel than having Iran get involved. And I would say probably wouldn't hurt Israel in terms of Europe as well if Iran got involved, Do I know anyone currently in Russia? I mean, I know people in Russia. They're not close friends. But I know people. A couple I could think of offhand. Belarus. I don't think Belarus is going to touch Lithuania. Well, Belarus attacking Lithuania would be a problem. Think about it. Because Belarus, I'm sure they've got like a little treaty with Moscow, but Lithuania gets attacked by Belarus, all of NATO gets involved. And then Russia has to decide, do we let Belarus get attacked by all of NATO, or does Russia get involved and get all attacked by NATO? Russia can't afford to get attacked by NATO. Thank you, Cheryl. Aflac. So I think no matter what threats you see from Russia, you should always keep in mind, and Belarus the same thing. Can they afford it? Can Belarus afford to go to war with NATO? No. Can Russia afford to go to war with NATO? No. Right? I mean, Russia's having even if Republicans cutting off American aid to Ukraine has helped Russia. Yes. And Russia's doing better on the battlefield. Yes. Is Russia winning? Right? It's not like Russia's taking massive amounts of land or something. Thank you, Liv. Right? And the war is going to be over in a week. Russia's doing better in small ways. And Ukraine's doing worse. Yes. But it's not like Russia's going to, win this thing or is winning this thing. War of attrition, yeah. I mean, it's a war of attrition that's, I think, leaning towards Russia, though, and maybe increasingly, right? I wouldn't visit. If you visit Russia right now, you're crazy, Lamar. Yeah, I wouldn't visit Russia. There's no way. No, the Russians are kidnapping people. I mean, they're kidnapping Americans. They've got an American journalist. They've got a couple American journalists, actually. And who was the new person was that Russian-American ballerina that they kidnapped from Los Angeles? I mean, oh my God. No, I think you're nuts if you go to Russia now. You're asking for trouble, The concern is Ukraine running out of bombs. It's Ukraine running out of bombs. It's Ukraine running out of defensive missiles for their air defenses. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. So, I mean, even if Russia's doing better now, it's not like things are going great for Russia. Russia can't afford to take on NATO. Russia would lose and I'm not saying this with bravado. Russia would lose if it took on NATO. The Russians cannot afford a war with NATO. And I would say this, the only people more afraid of war with Russia and NATO than NATO is Russia, right? NATO doesn't want war with Russia. Russia can't afford a war with NATO because Russia would lose. So there's just, yeah. All of that stuff are crazy threats, Oh yeah, the Canada family. How are they doing, Jocelyn? I saw that people mentioned that to me a couple months ago. The Canadian family that moved to Russia because they had it with political correctness or whatever it was. There was some conservative family, and they moved to Russia and they were hating it. And then they were hating it, and then their story got attention, and they tried to back it off because they were like, "Oh, we didn't say we hated it." And it was like, "Oh God, come on," I mean. MP Moto, I don't know what you're talking about. I can't look it up right now, but also you're giving me like a word. I'm not quite sure why you want me to look up a word. I just don't know what that means. Trying to get Americans. Can you imagine trying to get Americans to move to Russia? Oh my God. I mean, again, Steven Seagal, I'm sure he gets treated well with money and everything else because they need him, I mean, but yeah, I'm not too up on the Iran-Israel stuff. I saw the story today, but I'll have to read up on it first. I can't sort of give you a take on it because I just haven't seen enough. Hey, Brian, good to see you as well. Thank you for the hat there, Booty. Appreciate that. And as I said, please do consider subscriptions as well, guys. We've got our Saturday show coming up this Saturday that I do only for monthly subscribers. So that's monthly subscribers on TikTok, monthly members, or I forget whether they're called members or subscribers on each of the services on YouTube. And they're the folks who basically donate every month to me, but they donate via the service. On TikTok, you get the SNN next to your name. The SNN folks you see like Webadeb and some of the others, Blue Ariel, and they have access to certain emojis. Same thing on YouTube. Your name will be green if you've got a monthly subscription. And you get the emojis, and you get to join our Saturday show, which is a lot of folks look. It's me hanging out with just you guys. It's not the larger audience. And just sort of a better chance for you to be able to get your questions in too, because I'm not really doing a show. So it's literally me spent, an hour with you just reading your stuff and us talking. Thank you, Jocelyn. Appreciate that. I try. Thank you, Frank Thomas. You've got one. If that's your full name, that's got to be one of those names that like always confuse teachers. Or is that like one of those, a two-name first name? Otherwise, I can only imagine people going like, is your name Frank? Is it Thomas? Thank you, Martin. Oh, thank you, Brian. Thank you, Booty. Who else we got here? Brian again. SNN, Shannon, Ireland. Oh, that's very funny. I didn't know that. For our Sasha News Network, SNN means Shannon, Ireland for the airport. That's very funny. The situation for TikTok, so far it's been put off. Now, one thing that's interesting with that is, for Republicans, it's gotten difficult because a top Republican donor to Trump is now, he is one of the top investors. He's a big investor in TikTok's parent company, ByteDance or whatever it's called. And he had a meeting with Trump. And right after meeting with Trump, Trump changed his mind and decided no longer he supported the TikTok ban. Thank you, Flower Lady. Thank you, Lamb Chop. You can discern your own thinking as to why it is after meeting with a billionaire donor, Trump suddenly changed his mind about TikTok. But this guy works with the Club for Growth, which is a big, again, conservative project, lots of money, and they are now taking up the lobbying on behalf of TikTok. So I think Republicans are in a weird position because, for Republicans, it's really difficult because you've got their dislike of China, and I'm using the word dislike instead of harsher words because our overlords probably wouldn't like harsher words. Thank you, Blue Ariel, over on TikTok. But the Russians viscerally don't like China. Actually, not the Russians, I'm sorry. The Republicans viscerally don't like China. Viscerally. But at the same time, a top Republican donor with billions of dollars is invested in the Chinese company that runs TikTok and is telling them, be nice to TikTok. So that's a really weird situation. I mean, this may be the Russians. With the Russians, Republicans were willing to just bend over, right? Very interesting if Republicans would be willing to just overlook China as well, because the big donors tell them to. I just think that's fascinating. I did Art for Peace. Yeah, the 60 Minutes report on the Havana Syndrome. Yep, we talked about that actually Monday after the show. Meaning Monday, the day after the show was on there. I don't know, David. I've seen her latest threads. Yeah, or threats. David's talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's one of the top MAGA Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives, making threats against the Republican Speaker of the House if he goes ahead with the Ukraine aid package after Easter, like in a week or two. Now, he had recently said he was going to move ahead next week or so with the package. I saw an article in the last day saying, ruh-roh, looks like it's been postponed, because she's threatening to basically kick him out of being speaker. It's a mess for them. The MAGA Republicans want Ukraine to lose and they want Russia to win. This is in part because Trump has told them. I mean, Trump empowered them, and then Fox News and all the MAGA machine just jumped on the Russian bandwagon with all the Russian propaganda about claiming Ukraine is corrupt and, claiming Russia's innocent and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, she really doesn't want us to help Ukraine. She wants Ukraine to lose. She wants Russia to win. And yeah, I don't know. Okay, let me see, DJ. Something on the, let me see. They ended up getting a travel visa and have to return to Canada. They didn't get the right kind of visa? Okay, but doesn't that sound like an excuse? This is the Canadian family that was conservative and moved to glorious Russia and then hated it there. That sounds like a political excuse that the government said, okay, let's say your visa was wrong and you have to go home because your visa was wrong, not because you hated Mother Russia, right? So there you go. Well, I got to tell you, if Trump is being targeted by far-left liberals, then there must be far-left liberals at every branch of government, from the federal down to the state, to the U.S. Attorney's Office, to the special prosecutor, to the Justice Department, to states from Georgia to Florida, to New York, to Washington, D.C. I mean, if those are all liberal, if the FBI is now liberal, if the Department of Justice is now liberal, if prosecutors are now liberal, right? Then I don't know. I got to tell you. But, another possibility is that Trump broke the law 91 times. Well, I guess now it's 86 times. And that's why he's been charged with breaking the law. It's possible. But you got to, you guys, it's pretty laughable to suggest that all of these different indictments from all of these different states, from state governments, from federal governments, from New York, all of these things, the special prosecutor, that all of these are because they're liberals and Trump didn't break the law? Really? Sure. The thing is, you guys know this. I realize you feel the need to put this kind of gaslighting out there, but nobody takes it seriously. Nobody takes it seriously. Give me a break. Thank you, Monica, for the marvelous confetti. To suggest they're coordinated, sure. And the polio vaccine is going to give you, 3 heads. Sure. Thank you, Brett, for the cap. No, it is brainwashing. The thing is, it can be brainwashing. It could just be lies. I mean, I always tell people, when someone's lying to you, don't just assume they're uneducated. Don't just assume they're brainwashed. They may just be lying to you. Like on Twitter, I see this a lot. Thank you, Shebug. I see a lot of folks on Twitter that look like they should know better, and they're just lying. And people will often go, can you believe being so ignorant as to say this? And I will always jump in and go, don't assume they're ignorant when it's just as likely that they're lying. Like, in other words, they know what they're doing. And I think this happens a lot online. The people who spread the lies, they know what they're doing. Thank you, Tiffany. They're trying to trick you. And that, again, what's sad? Again, that I have to watch what I'm saying, because our overlords, I'm worried to Eve, I can't get more specific. For you, I'll have to do a YouTube only show at some point so I can actually tell the truth and not worry about getting censored for talking about American politics in an objective way. Anyway. Well, some of them are brainwashed. Yes. Yeah, but if you're brainwashed to lie, you're not really lying. If you're brainwashed, you actually think something's true. You're wrong. I think a lie is more volitional, right? A lie is you know the truth and you're intentionally trying to trick people. Some people are brainwashed and they don't know the truth or whatever, right? I mean, that's a whole different thing. Anyway, it's very sad. It's very sad. So what else we got, guys? Beep, 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 beep. Well, I mean, there is no Darren. The war. I mean, Darren says, when do you think Ukraine, U.S., NATO will accept defeat? The problem is there's no way to end this war. Russia will be back. Any peace treaty, Russia will break in 5 to 8 years, like it did the previous peace treaty. Russia wants all of Ukraine. So I don't know how you end this war. And by the way, from Russia's perspective, Ukraine's not going to stop doing attacks. Even if, Ukraine's going to keep doing attacks on Russian positions in occupied territories, and it's going to be very dangerous for the Russians. I don't know. I mean, and honestly, I just, and as the French have said too, if Ukraine starts to actually lose this war, and it looks like the Russians are able to advance and possibly take Kyiv, possibly take Odessa, then you've got the real danger of the Czech Republic, of the French and the Poles, at least among three who have said so, of entering the war themselves. They've said they would consider putting troops in Ukraine if Ukraine starts to really lose. So this is why I've said from the beginning, this is an incredibly dangerous move that the Biden administration has done in terms of trying to make it so that it's kind of a stalemate and kind of a tie, because that only makes things incredibly dangerous in terms of what happens next. Because also, good luck making it a tie. It's not a tie, right? We've actually put Russia in a situation to do better. Yulia Navalny was in the West. I don't know if she's back in Russia now, but she was in the West when the elections happened about a month ago, remember? But I don't know where she is now. We haven't heard anything from her. No. Oh, Misha, there you are. Okay, Misha, people were worried about you. All right. Anyway, yeah, and I don't think NATO's gonna. I mean, yeah, who is this? Frank Thomas says I can only see this ending if and when Ukraine gets to join NATO, but that's not going to happen. Yeah, that's not going to happen. It may happen someday in a very long time from now, but it's not happening anytime soon. Trump's bond? No. I mean, no. It's a weird story. I don't have enough on it, but Trump's bond, I'm trying to forget which case it even was I don't even want to, I've got to pull it up first to get it right. I'd have to pull it up. I didn't write it down. I don't want to sort of get it wrong as far as what I'm describing exactly. So, What else? Okay, good you're alive. Hopefully you're well, Misha. Canada is sending special forces to Ukraine to start training troops. Are they, though? I mean, good if they are. What else we got, guys? Slow day today. I mean, not a slow. Actually, it's funny. I had a lot of notes, but we went through relatively quickly. It's funny. Like the notes, I think sometimes we go through them fast. Sometimes we go, you know what it is? Like each story sometimes can take us on a tangent. And I think we weren't as many tangents today. I didn't see anything about that. Why is Representative Sparks saying she's voting no on Ukraine aid? Is it because of Israel or what? I don't even remember which one Sparks is. No labels is no longer trying to get on the ticket. Well, that's good. That's good. Well, you've got Kennedy doing all of his BS anyway at this point. You know? I mean, you know. Exactly. We got to get our 100,000 likes on TikTok. Uh-oh. All right. Dog wants a little more water. 1 second here. 1 second. NATO is not sending 100 billion. We'd like them to, but they're not necessarily. Oops. There you go. All right. Yes, NATO is not necessarily sending 100 billion. That was sort of proposed, but the Germans already kind of poo-pooed it a little bit today. So it was sort of a proposed idea from Stoltenberg, the Secretary General, but the Germans, like I said, kind of already tried to put a little bit of the kibosh on it today, unfortunately. You know. What else? Beep, 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 beep. Oops. Well, guys, what do you think? I mean, I could do a summary. We can call it quits early. What do we got? Will F-16 storage in Ukraine or in NATO once they're transferred to Ukraine? That's a good question. So the question is, once Ukraine gets the F-16s, will they be stored in a NATO country like Poland, or will they be stored in Ukraine? You know, the Russians just threatened a week ago, the Russians threatened and said, if you store those planes in NATO, we'll attack them in NATO. No, they won't, because then they'd be attacking NATO. They would have to attack a Polish airbase. And if they attack a Polish airbase, they've declared war on Poland, and they've declared war on NATO. The problem is, I guarantee you, there is no chance in hell that Biden will have the backbone to say, yeah, stage them in Poland so that, assuming the Poles wanted to, stage them in Poland so the Russians can't get to them. Biden wouldn't have the nerve. But the other thing is, Putin wouldn't have the nerve to attack. The Russians were trying to short circuit it in advance by once again doing one of their gaslighting threats. You know, oh, we'll come get you. Sure you will. Really? Again, why, in what possible universe would Russia declare war on 32 NATO countries when it's having a hard time fighting Ukraine? Right? I mean, it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. You know. Oh, she's that one. She's that crazy Republican. She's the Republican, that Sparks person. Is that who that is? Oh, she's, ooh, yeah. That figures. You know. Anyway. Oh boy. What else, guys? You know, we can go to Discord. I don't want to go to Discord for an hour, though. I don't mind going to Discord, like, for the half hour till 7:30 or so. Let's do that, maybe. Let me do a quick summary of the news, guys, since we're not going anywhere anyway right now. And then we can go to Discord for a little bit. We've got a good Discord community. You can find the link. It's the Aravosis Discord community. You can find the link on TikTok in my profile. Go to my profile. Look for the link there that has the red triangles pointing at it. Click it. And if you scroll down, you'll see Discord. Click it. It takes you there. It's free. For you guys on YouTube, go to aravosis.com. Same thing. Scroll down and you'll see the Discord mention. Click it, take you there. But we'll go there, and there's John's after party, which is in the left-hand column, upper top. You will be there. Let me finish doing the news here, and then we'll go over there. Thank you, Deep Press, because we haven't done that in a while, but we haven't finished early enough, and tonight's early enough to do it. I do not practice law. No, I am a lawyer. I actually passed the law degree. I passed the bar in Illinois, but I've never practiced. Thank you, user. So I would not be a good attorney for anything in principle because I'm not a practicing lawyer. And animal rights, I've never done it. I've never really been up on animal. I care about animals. Thank you, user 716. But I'm not, and user 336. But I'm not up on animal rights. Like I don't really know the issue. You know what I mean? Like I know this issue. I don't really know the law. I don't know anything about it. but I care about it. All right, let me do a quick summary, guys, and then we'll go to Discord, okay? Today is day 769 of Vladimir Putin's special 3-day military operation. Thank you, Super Hornet, for the gift on TikTok. We've got our coffee talk Saturday morning. Remember, for our paid monthly subscribers, do consider becoming a member or subscriber on TikTok and YouTube. It helps support my work. Thank you, Jocelyn, for the gift. And you get fun little emojis, and you get to join our Saturday show, among other things. So our Saturday show is 11 o'clock in the morning, Eastern Time, U.S. on Saturday. On TikTok, just for the TikTokers. On YouTube, for the YouTubers. Today marks the 75th anniversary of the Western military of the NATO alliance being formed. There was a horrific double tap attack. Thank you, Dale and Depress, for the gifts. A horrific double tap attack by Russia on a Kharkiv buildings, killing 3 emergency workers overnight. Basically, the Russians attacked the building and then waited for the firefighters and the ambulance folks to get there, and then attacked the building again in order to kill the emergency workers, and did. Very bad. This is a move that Al-Qaeda does. Actually, historically, Al-Qaeda has been known to do this. CNN says, according to a NATO official, Ukraine's shortage of ammunition and military equipment resulting from the U.S. and its allies' struggle to resupply the country's military is having an increasingly dire effect on the battlefield. The same NATO official is concerned about a Russian breakthrough, says Russia appears to lack the necessary maneuvering units to mount a large-scale successful attack this summer, but U.S. officials are growing increasingly concerned that Ukraine's frontline positions may not be resilient enough to fend off Russia's ongoing advances. NATO official also weighed in on Ukraine's attacks on Russian energy and said that at this point, Ukraine has disrupted as much as 15% of Russia's oil refinery capacity. Thank you, Jonathan. And these are the refineries that produce gasoline, which is interesting because that's where Russia's been having a big problem, is with gasoline. They stopped their exports of gasoline. They're having to import gas from Belarus, and the Ukrainians must be trying to push that hard. Very interesting. In a speech today, Putin suggested again that ISIS is not the one who attacked Russia 2 weeks ago, because Russia is too peaceful of a country and too harmonious of a country to have been attacked by Islamic terrorists. He actually said that. The Russian Defense Minister told the French Defense Minister yesterday that he hopes the French weren't involved in the terrorist attacks. So now the Russians are expanding their blame from Ukraine, America, and Britain attacking Russia in the terrorist attack that we all know was ISIS. And they're now claiming it was the French too, because why not, I guess. Sasha, stop. Oh, okay, go on. We're now claiming it's France too. The Kremlin I don't even care about that. The Kremlin spokesperson, I'm not even quoting that. Finland closed its border permanently, at least for a while, with Russia in response to Russia's effort to throw migrants across the border at Finland as retaliation for Finland joining NATO. Reuters had an interesting story about sanctions hampering Russia's efforts to repair its oil refineries, that basically the know-how and the parts to repair the refineries are all in the West, and Russia can't get them. And 2 more stories. A Russian liquefied natural gas project has been canned, basically, and it's had to move to a different part of Russia because Western sanctions have curbed Russia's access to ice-class tankers. So tankers that can handle, frozen areas in the Arctic and stuff, they can't get them because we cut them off. So that's good. And finally, the Russian military appears to have recruited proudly a former Massachusetts City Council member who was charged with possession of dirty magazines involving children, arrested for that in the U.S., was able to flee the country. I'm not sure how they let him flee. Goes to Turkey, and from Turkey goes to Russia, and they now have evidence that he's fighting in Ukraine against the Ukrainians, and that the Russians thought this was a good idea to hire somebody like this. It doesn't say, but you can easily Google it, Martin, because Massachusetts and the keywords I'm not saying in order not to upset our TikTok overlords, Google those keywords and you'll find out who the guy is. All right, guys, let's go over to Discord for the next 20 minutes or so. Join us there. It's free. You can find our Discord community at aravosis.com. Scroll down and you'll see Discord. For you guys, go to my profile, click the link in my profile with the red triangles pointing at it. Click it. Scroll down and you'll see Discord. Go there. Join. It's free. If you're new to Discord, it can be confusing. If you know Discord, then you're fine. And we'll be over there at John's after party. All right. Okay, guys, I'm going to sign off so I can get over there in time to do that and then take a break. I am not funded by Israel, but I would love to be funded by Israel. So anybody who wants to fund me, buy an ad, buy a gift. Thank you. Thank you, Puppy Chulo. Happy to be funded. Anybody who wants to fund me, I'm here. So, all right, guys, you know how to fund me. Buy those ads and buy those memberships. If Israel wants to buy 1,000 memberships, go Israel.